Hello there! What's going on, everyone? Today I'm going to be building a fleet with Ryan Kingston's fleet builder for Star Wars Armada. I will put a link to this in the description below. It's a great fleet builder that works really well on PC and on mobile, both. And it's definitely my favorite fleet builder, although there are several out there that are all very, very good. This is the one I tend to use the most. Also kind of works well in build videos as well because it's just so big stuff. You can see what I'm doing. And the list I'm going to build today is an Imperial list. It's going to focus on the Imperial Squadrons 1 pack, which is going to be coming back out. So I'm going to do Squadrons first. The Rebel Squadrons 1 pack is also on the way. I did a video on that just recently. I'll put links to those at the end of the video. Yeah, the Imperial Squadrons 1 pack is coming out. It's going to be a lot of staple cards that a lot of people missed out on. TIE Bombers, for example. Let's throw two of them in here. I'm not going to use the named because it kind of got nerfed. Your Major Rhymer is not as crucial as he used to be, although he's still a quality bomber. But I'm going to try to focus on all four of the squadrons that we're going to get. We're going to have TIE Interceptors in here, so I'll put a regular Interceptor, but I'm going to go with the named Interceptor we'll get in there, Soontir Fel. Soontir Fel is really, really nice. And this, what I'm going to specifically do is combine him with Darth Vader. Darth Vader is a fantastic squadron to have all around, one of the best squadrons ever. It's just a very, very good squadron, universally good. His crits count as damage regardless of whom he's attacking. So he also does really good against fighters. So that is really good. If you get that black crit on him when he's attacking another fighter, you're going to have 2 damage from 1 die. And there's not a whole lot of squadrons that do that. And he can do that pretty well. Plus, he's got just good dice all around with the double brace and escort. It pairs really, really well with Soontir Fel. We're going to supplement him by adding an extra generic TIE Advanced. Again, you get 2 of each. So I want to make sure I do that. And this way, Soontir Fel will fly with Darth Vader and this other TIE Advanced. I do think this is going to be a build where I kind of have maybe 2 groups of squadrons that are going and doing different things. Like Soontir Fel, Darth Vader, and this TIE Advanced might go after other enemies, other groups of squadrons, whereas like the TIE Bombers and some of the other ones that are coming, I'm going to add may go after the ships a little bit more. So I might separate these 2. So that is certainly something to think about. For other named pilots, we're going to put Howl Runner in there. Howl Runner is, you get her in the core set, but you already have her if you're playing. She's just great because she's going to increase everybody else with Swarm. She's going to give them an extra die. So that's going to work really well for the TIE Interceptors and all the TIE Fighters that we're going to add. We'll add a few extra TIE Fighters. And the cool thing about Howl Runner in this build, and that works really, really well with the TIE Interceptors, is that she's going to also increase a die on their counter. And that's what's so nice, because they have Swarm, but they have Counter. Counter is treated as an attack, so it gets everything that a normal attack gets, except it's also considered a counter. So the only real difference here is it's not going to trigger another counter of its own. But you get to re-roll a die when you're counterattacking if you have Swarm, if they're engaged. You also get to add a die from Howl Runner if you're counter. So you can counterattack for 3, which is really, really cool. It's going to make these TIE Interceptors really, really deadly against other squadrons. So that much is cool. Let's also add, let's also add the other unique TIE fighter pilot, Mauler Mithil. He might tag along with Soontir Fel and Darth Vader as well, because he's going to do 1 damage to every enemy that he is engaged with, every enemy squadron he's engaged with. So he's great for just jumping into a big group and putting 1 damage on everything. It's amazing for him to do that. Now, it's a little harder for him to be able to operate that way if we're not going to use Intel. And I'm not putting any Intel in this build, but I have a way around that. I'm going to have a way to deal with that. We'll talk about that as we get further into the video. Now that I think we've got all of the uniques, except for Major Rhymer. I'm just going with 2 generic bombers for this particular build. I think the generic bomber is one of the best things you can get in this squadron pack, and one of the things that you really don't have in a whole lot of other places. The black bomber die for the Empire, it's not all over the place like it is with the Rebels. So this is something that's really good for the Empire. All right, so what else are we gonna add? Let's also add some TIE Fighters, so we get some more Swarm. We'll add, let's do 2 more. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10, because there's 2 TIE bombers. So 10 squadrons is a pretty big amount of squadrons. I imagine we'll probably separate them a little bit, maybe have some 2 TIE bombers with 2 TIE fighters kind of flying together, going after the ships. Maybe the TIE fighters lowers the shields and the bombers come in and put some crits on. And then maybe some of the rest of the squadrons fly around and try to take down their squadrons first. Or we could just keep them all together if we need to. But yeah, we have a pretty good anti-squadron presence here between the interceptors and the escorts and Mauler. And the bombers give us a decent amount of anti-ship. Vader is pretty good for anti-ship. Also, the TIE Advanced is pretty good for anti-ship once the shields are down, because that, even though it's just a black die, the black die has a much better chance of getting a hit on a ship than a blue die does. So that is cool. So what else are we gonna add? Well, I'm gonna start off with my flagship. And that is going to be, you probably have one of these already, and that's going to be a Victory 1. The Victory 1 comes in the core set, but you probably don't have Sloan, so we are going to add Sloan. You're going to want a Quasar for this build, because I am going to also put a Quasar in here. And Sloan is going to be a really, really great commander for this one, because, well, she is, none of your squadrons are going to have rogues, so she's going to work really well for everything. She's going to work especially well with those interceptors and those TIE fighters, because basically anything they roll against a ship is going to be helpful. And also you can use those accuracies if you're attacking an enemy squadron with a scatter or something like that. You can spend those accuracies as well. She's just going to be super, super good for a build like this. She's probably the best commander to run if you get yourself a Squadrons 1 pack, and that's, if that's the only pack you've got. Now, granted, you can modify this build. This build might just be a starting point for you. If you've got everything, Intel is going to be a really good option to add some jump masters into this. There's all kinds of other things that you can add to enhance this build. But this might be a pretty good starting build if you've got the core set, this Squadrons pack, and maybe a handful of expansions. So let's go ahead and I said we were going to have a Quasar. Let's go ahead and add a Quasar. Quasars came back in stock recently, so hopefully you've got yourself one of those. They make for a great carrier. By the way, the Victory 1 is actually a pretty good carrier too, because it has 3 squadrons. You're probably noticing I didn't add any upgrades to this Victory. Well, there's a reason for that, and I do want to have a decent number of ships. I don't like the idea of having really just like 1 or 2 ships and then losing them and getting tabled while you have 130 points of squadrons on the board. So that's my personal preference, but yeah, you can certainly drop one of the ships I'm going to add if you want to add more upgrades to the Victory, or upgrade it to a Victory 2. Victory 2s are a lot better now, but I think I have a reason for having Sloan here, because obviously with this many squadrons, you're going to want to go after Sloan, and somebody who's determined enough might be able to take her out. But I'm spreading out my threat, because Sloan on a Victory is a big threat, but it's also a pretty heavily shielded, large hull. It's a survivable threat. The Victory can take a beating and survive, at least a medium beating. But the Quasar is definitely a ship people are going to want to go after. And the Quasar doesn't have as many hull, doesn't have as many shields, doesn't have as many defense tokens. So the Quasar is much more likely to die. So what are we going to put on the Quasar? Well, here we're going to put a lot of upgrades. All right, so I'm going to force you. Do you want to go after my biggest carrier, or do you want to go after my biggest threat, being Sloan? So that's kind of one of the things that led me to this. Now, I did talk about not having intel. So the officer that I'm going to put on the Quasar is Admiral Chirino. He is expensive, but he is perfect for a list like this, because he is going to allow me to still move. Squadrons that you activate can move even when they're engaged. An engaged squadron moves this way, treated as having a printed speed of 2. So what he is doing is he is giving you the ability to still move your squadrons even if somebody comes in and ties them up. This is absolutely paramount for something like this. And it will combo well with other titles that are going to increase speed. Like if I wanted to, and I'm not going to have the points for it, but if I wanted to run like Corruptor or something like that, that would increase the speed 1 more. So printed speed of 2, that would increase it to 3. And that, you can work out some combos that way. It's really cool. But what you want with Chirinu, because he's only going to trigger off of ships that are squadrons that his ship activates, is you want to run a ship with a high squadron value. You want to get the biggest bang for your buck, because this guy costs 10 points. And because of that, I'm going to go ahead and put Expanded Hangar Bay. We're going to increase our squadron value by 1. That's going to bring me up to a squadron value of 5. If I have a token, which I'll probably stockpile a token on the first turn, I'm going to be able to activate 6 squadrons with this Quasar, which means Chirano is going to be able to activate 6 of my squadrons. Even if they're engaged, they can still move and shoot. And so that's going to be really, really good. And that's really going to work well with somebody like Maul or Mythal, who is going to move into a big group. I can potentially activate him again. Maybe he just moves a millimeter, puts himself right back down where he was, damages everybody a second time. It's just going to be really effective with him. So Chiranu is just going to work really, really well on a ship like this. The next upgrade I'm going to put, since we have 2 offensive retrofits, I already increased my squadron limit, but let's also increase my squadron range. Boosted comms and expanded hangar bay are a match made in heaven for a build like this, because now I don't have to worry about, I had to move Maul or Mythal too far away. No, I can't reach him next turn. Again, this is also maximizing Chiranu. I can hit more squadrons and I have more range, because with that many squadrons on the board, they're going to be spread out. They're going to eventually, kind of be hard for me to reach. So this is going to make this much, much easier for me to get all of those squadrons, although I might not be able to always get them, and I have another trick for that. I will put flight controllers on here as well. Flight controllers is going to, when I do activate them, again, we're gonna eventually face more squadrons. I have a feeling squadron meta is gonna come back a little bit more once these packs show up. More and more and more of the newer players are going to have access to squadrons, so I think you're gonna see fewer, at least for a time, I think you're going to see fewer squadronless builds. So I think you can expect to have to, have a good anti-squadron presence for a while. So Flight Controllers is a great card for that. And again, Flight Controllers is only going to affect the squadrons that you are activating with this ship. So all of these work together really, really well. Maximizing the extra blue dice we're going to have, maximizing the ability to move and attack, and this is just a really good combination. One thing could completely cripple this ship, though, and that's an enemy squadron with slicer tools. So how are we going to deal with something like that? Well, that's why the Pursuant title is really good. When you reveal a command other than a squadron command, you may discard this card to resolve a squadron command. Treat the command as if you spent a dial. So what that means is basically, no matter what happens, you'll always be able to guarantee you at least can get that one squadron command off when you really need to. It's a one-time use, but it's only 2 points. And if you don't face anybody who has anything that could change your dial, and that can sometimes happen, or sometimes it's a critical that does it, you can then always just plan a different, if you need to plan a navigation or whatever, it gives you the flexibility. But if you are facing slicer tools, you can just plan squadron the whole time, and if they're managed to hit you, then you pop Pursuant. Although granted, they'll probably go for somebody else, which is also fine. All right, that's the Quasar. We've got only 305 points. We got some points left over, and I'll show you what I am doing with this. Now I'm doing something you might not agree with. I'm adding in Architons. I'm adding an Architons light cruiser. Now the Architons light cruiser, granted the other cruiser has a better squadron value, but it becomes a points issue. I wanted actually this one more for its teeth rather than for its squadron activation ability. Turbo laser reroute circuits on an Architons is effective. You obviously won't be able to spend your evade when you are defending, if you also want to use it for attack. But sometimes you roll really well and don't need to use it. It doesn't happen all that much, but it's a great ability to have. And I'm going to put, the reason I wanted this is because I'm going to actually run the Centaur title. Since I said I wasn't going to use any other squadrons, I don't have access to relay. So this actually does give me the ability, if in case I get separated and I do have to split my forces up, Centaur is going to be a kind of a fun title. Now this is something that you can definitely change out if you wanted to, you don't have to run Centaur. It's not crucial to the build here, but it does give you some flexibility on being able to reach all of those squadrons. Probably not as much with the Quasar, but maybe for somebody like this little Gazanti that I'm going to add. Maybe he's going to activate, but he's in the back, and the squadrons he wants to activate are too far away. Maybe if they're close enough to the Centaur, he can still activate them from there. It kind of gives us a workaround with relay, and I kind of like that. But I'm thinking I want to put this Gazanti a little closer. I'm going to go ahead and add Instructor Goron to that Gazanti, and all of my ships all of my squadrons except for the 2 bombers are going to have counter 1. And so this is, like I talked about, splitting my forces up. I probably would want the bombers, closer to enemy ships. The Gazanti might be a little farther away, dealing with the opponent's squadron threat. He's got a black die for anti-squadron, but also he'll make sure that the other guys near him increase their counter value by 1. And that's again something that Dengar might have done. So if you wanted to add, and you can combo that in as well. If you want to add Dengar to this build, then you're going to have intel and increasing counter. This is also going to increase counter a little bit further. This basically gives Soon Tyrfel counter 3. So even if Darth Vader dies, people still don't want to shoot Soon Tyrfel because he's going to have counter 3, probably 4 with Howlrunner, 5 if you add Dengar. So rolling a lot of dice back with a reroll and Sloan, so like it's just really, really nasty combinations. I can see that being a thing, and if you get more than one squadron pack, I could see potentially even upgrading some of these TIE fighters to additional interceptors. There's a lot of other options that you could do as well, but interceptors would really shine in a build like this. But I only included 2 because if you got yourself one squadron pack, this is maybe what you would have. Now this puts us at 399. There's definitely some flexibility and room for you to change out this build depending on A, what you have, or B, what your preferences are. I think you could easily drop the entire Architans if you wanted to in favor of maybe another Gazanti and save up some points for other upgrades on the Victory. I think, if you don't have a Quasar, I would swap in other Victories because they are, they're more expensive, but they also have a high, they're not that much more expensive, especially once you factor in all the upgrades. But you could, you could easily put like 2 Victories, each with flight controllers or something like that. That would be pretty good. You could give them some of the expanded hangar bay or boosted comms. Pretty decent better survivability, and close to the same squadron value. So Victories were like the original carriers for the Empire. They're still doing really well for that. The Quasar is just the perfect carrier, and I love it. But the Architans gives you a little more firepower with some reliable red dice. In case that ends up being something that you need. Especially, the extra utility that Centaur provides. I think that's pretty cool. All right, so for objectives, I think this will be very similar to the objectives we ran in the Rebel list. I'm going to go with Most Wanted since I have a Gazanti. Most Wanted is going to give me a lot of points since I can put that on their biggest ship, and I will definitely come out ahead of an opponent. I think for here, I think we'll go with Fighter Ambush. I think that one's going to be clear. I have so many fighters. I think so many squadrons that are going to be able to perform attacks against ships. Make sure I am dealing damage cards. Sloan's going to help that work even better. And I think Superior Positions is going to be a good option for this one as well. Superior Positions is going to work off of ships or squadrons performing the attacks against ships, against those rear hull zones. It'll be hard to get the rear hull zones of my ships, especially with the Victory and the Architans having kind of more narrow hull zones as well. So it's really going to help me, I think, more than it'll help an opponent. And if they do bring in a heavy squadron build, I have enough anti-squadron to be able to counter that with this list. I think this will be a very effective list overall. But if you have access to more squadrons, you might want to tweak it a little bit more. I think adding Dengar would be really nice here. But even if you don't, you've got Admiral Chirano. Now, if you do add Dengar to this list or something else, you could potentially swap Admiral Chirano for a different officer and save up some points, giving you more points to work into the build and however you see fit. But this is a good starting build. If you've got a Quasar, a Corset, an Architans, a Gazanti, and a Squadrons 1 pack, I think all the upgrades are included in all that stuff. Well, no, TRC is not. That's in the Rebel MC30. So you can make some tweaks if you would like. But yeah, that's the build. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Yeah, I want to give a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon, and I will see you guys soon. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a great day.